We don't hear a lot about head and neck cancer, but it is out there, as our guest can attest. Kevin Jerge of Jackson, Tennessee, found himself with a major hill to climb when he was diagnosed with stage 4 head and neck cancer. But he has survived and wants so much to help others with a similar diagnosis that he wrote a book on the subject. This is the Cancer Interviews podcast, and I'm your host, Bruce Morton. Now, here's Kevin Jerge. And Kevin, welcome to Cancer Interviews.
Bruce, so great to be on your show, and thank you for having me. I really look forward to this interview today.
And we look forward to hearing your story. Kevin, we're going to start off the same way we always start off, and that's to learn a little bit more about you, your life exclusive of cancer. So if you would, tell us a bit about where you're from, when you work, what you do for work, and when time allows for fun, what you do for fun.
Great, Bruce. Yes, I'm one of 5 boys, originally from Buffalo, New York. Come from a traditional blue-collar family. My dad was a city fireman in the city of New York. We're all Irish twins. We're about a year apart, us boys. My mom is 100% Irish, and grew up at a time during the 70s and 80s in Buffalo when it was a great place to be a kid. And from there, I went to high school locally, went away to college in Pennsylvania, played sports, little baseball, and played football at a small school in Pennsylvania, Westminster College, graduating in 1986, came back and started my professional career and started a young family, started off in pharmaceutical sales and had 3 children with my first wife and raised them in Buffalo, New York, and really had an interesting career as I moved from pharmaceutical sales into some other industries, and got to travel all over the United States as part of that. So really had an interesting career. Right now, I'm actually in the process, I'm consulting for a couple of companies, but in the process of looking for my next opportunity, and excited to see where that may take me. My wife is Elizabeth, and she's from Jackson, Tennessee, and we have 2 daughters. So in total, I have 5 children, and it's much like my youth. It's been great raising a family of 5.
And for fun, what do you do?
So I'm one of those competitive people, Bruce. So any type of game I'm interested in. It could be a board game, it could be a athletic game, but I picked up the game of golf. I enjoy getting out and golfing on a regular basis, and anything that will get my competitive juices flowing, I want to be part of.
Well, one of the things you competed against was head and neck cancer, which we're going to talk about. And let's start at the start. For all of us who have been diagnosed with cancer, there was that time in which things went from normal to abnormal, when you noticed that something wasn't quite right. And that unfortunately started off a chain of events that resulted in a diagnosis. So for you, when did you notice that something wasn't quite right?
So I remember pretty vividly. The year was 2013, and I was actually preparing to go to a trade show in Chicago. And I'd had a sore throat and had some discomfort and wasn't sure what was causing it. So I saw my primary doctor, and he says, "Oh, looks like you have a little bit of inflammation." He put me on some antibiotics, and I went to that trade show. Well, during the course of that trade show, if you've ever worked a trade show or conference, you're constantly talking. You're constantly engaging with people. And I noticed my throat getting drier and more irritated. So about the second to last day, I called back to a friend that I knew who was an ENT. And I called him up and I said, "Listen, I've saw my primary. I'm now having trouble swallowing. My speech is changing a little bit. People have told me. I'm really concerned about this. I want to get this looked at." He said, "No problem. When you fly in, come right to my office and we'll take a look at you." Bruce, that was a Friday of that week. So I flew in and I drove from the airport to his office, and he waited to check me out. And he took one look in my throat and my tonsils and said, "Okay, those are coming out." I said, "Okay." Well, at this time in 2013, my son was going to be graduating high school in Buffalo, and I was in Tennessee. I said, "Well, let's get this scheduled. I've got this graduation coming up, and then we'll get these taken out after." He said, "No, oh no, we're taking those out on Monday." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yes, these need to come out." So in the back of my mind, I said, he's seeing something he really doesn't like or he's seen before. Because I wasn't in that much discomfort that I didn't think I could last, a week or two. So anyways, I went through that surgery. And by the way, I don't know if you ever had the surgery or know adults that have a tonsillectomy, but it's pretty overwhelming from a pain and discomfort point, more than I'd ever expected. So he took the tonsils out that Monday, and obviously he's going to biopsy those tonsils. That's how aggressive they were. Usually they might do a biopsy first, but he knew they had to come out. And a couple of days later, he called me, and I'm recovering, and he said, hey, we've got the results back. You do have, they were cancerous cells, but I'm feeling really good about the surgery. So good news, I think I got it all in the surgery. He says, but we'll schedule a scan and just to make sure. So had that scan scheduled for about a week and a half out, so they let me recover a little bit from that tonsillectomy, and met with my radiation oncologist, and he said, hey, we got the scan back, and he said, good news, your cancer is only in a couple of your lymph nodes, 2 or 3 hot spots. And I thought, well, if I keep getting good news, I'm in trouble, because here I thought they excised the tonsils, they're out of me, and the cancer's gone. I wasn't even thinking about, the spread into my lymph nodes because of the confidence that my ENT had. So he said, you've got to heal up, but we're going to attack this aggressively with radiation. At that point, your head's spinning a little bit. And I said, I really want to get a second opinion because, I've never gone through anything like this in my life before. So I went up to Vanderbilt, which is about a 2-hour ride from where I'm living in Jackson, and met with an oncologist there. She reviewed my files and said, I believe we would attack this since it's considered stage 4. Anytime there's a spread, we're going to attack this with chemo and radiation. And I went back to my doctor with those results in Jackson, and he looked me in the eye and he says, Kevin, we can get this cancer with radiation. You have a pretty good profile. You're a young man. You're in pretty good shape. I think you're going to respond very well, and we don't have to put your body through that stress of the chemotherapy. So, talked to my wife, prayed on it, and decided that I was going to attack this with the radiation. And that's what we did. So it was a 7-week treatment that started in late that summer of 2013.
But part and parcel of all this, Kevin, was that you heard the words, you didn't just hear the word cancer, you heard the words stage 4. How daunting was that?
So all if you've never experienced cancer, and I hadn't, and no one in my family had it at that point, my immediate family, and there were some in my wife's family, but when you hear stage 4, there's not a stage 5. So that was pretty grave to me. And then I dug in, and like most people, and did research, and I asked a lot of questions. And one thing about me is I'm always inquisitive. So from early on, I was asking everyone I interacted with as many questions as I could to get all the information possible. And so the way I dealt with it was, my doctor explained to me, he said, listen, it's a classification. It's almost a textbook classification that we follow. But he goes, I can show you, and I can show you what I'm looking at, which he did. And he said, these are a couple spots that are lighting up hot. They called them hot spots. So out of abundance and precaution, and we do have to go after these spots and get them. And from that moment on, I said, okay, I may be a stage 4, but I'm not that stage 4. And it became a mindset for me.
By the way, we're confident you'll be able to learn some tips and tools to help you through your personal cancer journey. But first, we'd like to invite you to please give us a like, leave a comment or a review below, and share this story with your friends. Kindly click on the subscribe button below and click on the bell icon. That way you'll be notified the next time we post an interview. And if you or a loved one are facing a cancer diagnosis, please click on the link in the description and show notes below to check out our free guide, The Top 10 Things I Wish I Knew When I First Got Cancer. Now, Kevin, let's talk about when you first got cancer. We don't know a whole lot, just in our experience at this end, about head and neck cancer. So I have to ask, with this diagnosis, now you're about to undergo chemo. At that time, what did you feel like? You were lacking your tonsils. What did it feel like? Could you talk?
Yeah, so I look back and I think I repressed a lot of the pain from that initial tonsillectomy, but it was the pain that I'd never experienced before, and it's not something you can put your hands on. You can, if you hurt your elbow or leg, you can rub it and you can put ice on it. But this was inside of my throat, and the pain meds they prescribed to me did nothing at all. I mean, I was walking around the first 2 or 3 days like a zombie. Yeah, they made me foggy, but in my mind, they weren't touching the pain. So, you harken back to your days when you're a kid, and maybe there were 1 or 2 kids in the neighborhood had tonsillectomy, and they ate ice cream for a week, and it was, you're almost envious. I said, that is not what I'm going through. I didn't, I couldn't eat. I really couldn't talk, or I talked minimally, and it was a pretty difficult pain for probably about a week or 10 days, of intense pain. And after that, I really felt better, gradually each and every day after that, only to get ready to go into treatment.
Okay, but you did have to undergo chemo and
not chemo, just radiation.
Radiation. Okay.
Yes.
In terms of the radiation, what was the toughest part of that treatment regimen, the radiation?
So I think when you hear radiation, you're thinking, okay, they're going to attack this, and it's going to be this process where they're slowly going to, and for lack of a better term, burn the cancer out of me. But what I didn't understand, Bruce, is when I went in for that first appointment, the way they had to administer it, and they called it an IMRT therapy. And they actually made a mask, and they molded it to my face. And it was very tight, and I had to lay down on a table for my treatment, and they would actually bolt your head with screws to that table so you wouldn't move. And then they knew exactly where to pinpoint the treatment, so it was hitting those lymph nodes and affected areas around my tonsils where they removed it. So it was a very scientific and well thought out plan, but I wasn't ready for it. I didn't know I was going to be bolted down to a table. The mask was so tight on my face I couldn't move. It was claustrophobic, and that's what I was going to be going through every day for 7 weeks, 5 days a week, and you'd get the weekend off.
I'm trying to put some sort of silver lining on this. During that time, did you get to eat ice cream? Lots of it?
I did have enough ice cream. And here's the advice my doctor gave me, which you can appreciate. Going into this, knowing they knew what I was going to go through when they were really burning my throat, they wanted me to put on weight. They wanted me to put on calories because I was going to experience tremendous weight loss, because I wasn't going to be able to eat. So yes, during that recovery, I was enjoying my mint chocolate chip ice cream as much as possible.
Now, you mentioned this 7-week treatment regimen. At any time during those 7 weeks, maybe near the end, did you sense that things were getting better? Did you sense some metaphoric light at the end of the tunnel?
So let me tell you, I ran into one of my doctor's friends in the hallway one time, and he was leading a group of people around on their rounds, and he asked me what I was doing there. And I told him, and then he said, "Oh, you're in good hands with your doctor. I know him personally. They're going to fry that out of you." But if you can think about what I went through for 7 weeks, the first couple of weeks, I didn't really feel a lot of the effects because it's a slow burn. But I will say it gradually got worse. right? Every week after that was terrible because it was like having a sunburn inside of my throat and then being exposed to the sun every day after you had a sunburn. So it never went away. It actually got worse. And it actually was worse after because when I was finished with my treatment, it continued, that burn continued for weeks. So was there a feeling of accomplishment maybe that I got through the treatment? Yes, but those last few weeks I was dying to get to the finish line.
Now, you mentioned the sunburn in your throat. Did that pain transfer to, head to toe, or was the worst part of this mental anguish, or the thought that this isn't going to end? When you still had that residual pain after the treatment, did you have the feeling that you're making progress, that you're getting to the finish line?
I think before I started, I made up my mind, like anything I attacked in life, whether that's sports or endeavors or coaching or business, you have to have a plan. And a lot of it is mental. And I really tried to get myself in the right mental mind frame. And I did ask those questions. And there really were no secrets. They knew it was going to be a tough treatment based on the location and based on what they were doing. So I tried to go in there every day with a positive mindset. The changes that were happening to me physically, the exterior burn on my neck and area, the loss of hair in the back, everybody told me that was going to happen. So being prepared and understanding really helped me through that treatment journey.
Now let's talk about another hopefully positive aspect of all this. You'd mentioned Elizabeth, and you'd mentioned 5 kids. To what degree were they a source of support for you?
They were great. And that's what I tell everyone. When you're going through cancer, sometimes, and I touch on this when I was writing, sometimes I felt lonely. And, there was something insular about it. When you hear that diagnosis of you've got cancer, it's stage 4. There's something you start thinking about your mortality a little bit. And what I realized, maybe more so after, but during, there were so many people around me, my kids, my family, my brothers, my parents, and friends that were offering support, right? Because it's a difficult position if you're not the patient. So those non-patient family members and friends, oftentimes they don't know what to say or how to engage you. And once I was figuring that out, I was trying to engage them to make them feel comfortable and gain an understanding. And I think it also brought me a lot of strength to know that A, you have the support, right? B, you're going to get through this, and these people, are going to be special in your life forever. And they were there at your most crucial time. So there was a lot of gratefulness and gratitude that I had.
Now let's talk about getting to the finish line, because obviously you did get there, perhaps not as quickly as you'd like, or perhaps a little more pain physically or mentally along the way. But if you would, Kevin, describe what it was like when you felt like, hey, this thing is behind me or close to it.
Yeah, I think from a treatment standpoint, Bruce, when you have that last treatment, and the Kirkland Cancer Center where I was in Jackson, Tennessee, they have their bell ringing ceremony. And so you finish your last treatment, and there's an awareness in that building that, someone is going to be finishing their treatment today. The other patients know it, the doctors know it, the techs know it. And so I was, walking down that hall, and my doctor was sitting there holding this big old school bell that looked beat up, looked like it was 100 years old. And I was going to be ringing that bell. And that bell signified to me, and I believe I got a tear in my eye when it happened, was I'm through the worst part of this. Right. And I made up my mind, you're going to get through treatment. It doesn't matter what they throw at you, you're going to get through it. But that bell signified I'm done. Right. And hopefully, knock on wood, I'm done forever. I love all these great people. They're some of the most special people in the world, but if I really didn't have to see you guys again, it wouldn't be the worst thing. And so I think once I rang that bell, and that bell rang through there physically, but then, my whole family's up in Buffalo. That bell clamoring ran through all the way up to Buffalo. And, there's the outreach after that last treatment was a great place to be.
Our guest is Kevin Jerge of Jackson, Tennessee. He's talking about his journey with stage 4 head and neck cancer. Now, Kevin, let's talk about the here and now. Is there anything today that you cannot do that you could do pre-diagnosis, or are you pretty close to 100%?
I am pretty close to 100%. Some of the things I had to deal with were the residual side effects of that radiation. So I lost my taste buds, and that lasted really for several years. So some of the things I used to enjoy from a taste perspective were gone for quite a while. So that was, a little bit disheartening. And so I had to work through that. And I was encouraged because they said a lot of people do get their taste to return. Some things you may not have. So that was the first and foremost, because I had lost quite a bit of weight during the treatment. And, short of a feeding tube, most people with this type of cancer or oropharyngeal cancer, excuse me, end up on a feeding tube because they're just unable to get any calories. And I luckily avoided that. So I lost my taste. And some of the other things that happened when I had some issues, some dental issues, a lot of radiation flying around makes your teeth a little bit more brittle. And also had some slight hearing loss and tinnitus as a result of all that radiation. So those were the trade-offs to say, hey, we're going to get rid of this cancer, but it's not as easy as you think. There's going to be some residual things that happen to you. And they were like, these may happen to you. And several of them did. And several of those things didn't. But I still see myself as very lucky.
Now, we mentioned at the top that your cancer journey inspired you to get your message out to others, and that includes writing a book. If you would, tell us about the book.
Sure. I actually have a copy here. I'll show you a copy. And it's called, the title is Go to Your Happy Place. Interesting, when I first started, I think it was my first day when they bolted my head to the table. And I had a little congestion in my nose, and I didn't realize how tight it was going to be. And they were putting me in that tube, and I really I panicked a little bit because I couldn't breathe. I couldn't clear my nose. And after that treatment, I said, the tech said, how was it? And I said, well, it was a little unsettling, to be honest. It was unnerving. And I said, I was congested. They said, okay, well, you probably need to take a decongestant. Many of our patients that have this type of treatment might take a Xanax or something to get yourself to relax a little bit. And she said, you should really go to your happy place under that mask. And I said, oh, okay. Well, I had grown up in such a unique time. I had all these great stories and a great child and a great youth. I mean, stories beyond stories. And I said, okay, I'm going to start thinking about some of those things. And the stories in the book had always been in my mind and my heart. But this was now a way to weave two really important stories together. So the book I wrote talks about my journey through cancer treatment, but during those treatments, how I would slip back to my childhood days and some of those great stories and some of the things we did all as kids in the neighborhood and as a family. So the story really interlaces that journey of treatment and me going back to my childhood to experience some great memories. And it was a great cathartic right? I was able to get share all these stories, number one, about my childhood, but then get the treatment week by week through these books. And it's a series of books. So this is just the first one out. And this first book really just takes me through my first week of treatment. And each book after will be a subsequent week of my treatment.
Now,
so there's a lot more to come.
Okay, I'm sorry, Kevin. If somebody would like to get that book, how might they go about it?
They can go right to Amazon and just do a search on Go to Your Happy Place or search my name, and my last name is spelled Jerge. And I think if you just read some of the reviews on there already, I think I've touched a spot in a lot of people that have grown up during that time or people that are facing cancer. And the outreach I've received from cancer patients has been really inspiring. I think because, it is a little bit lonely. It's insular. And if you can laugh a little bit and escape a little bit, it's important.
Well, that's priceless, and it sounds like the way that you have your book has resonated with people. It sounds like you hit the bullseye in terms of what you were trying to accomplish, because there's so much information out there for lay people, from lay people, that supplements what anybody can get from a doctor. Kevin, now we want to finish the same way we always do, and you've covered some of this ground, but even if we're redundant, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But the way we always wrap up is to pose this question. Let's say that you encountered somebody who had just been diagnosed with head and neck cancer, and at this stage, they have far more questions than answers. If there's anything in terms of a message to that person that you would like to share with them, there might be a lot of things, but if there's one overarching thing that you would want to make sure got through to that person who's just been diagnosed with head and neck cancer, what would that be?
First of all, I tell everyone just to slow down a second because things seem to be moving fast. And I understand when you get that diagnosis, you're going to have a lot of questions. That's good. Don't be afraid to ask questions. So many people go into it and they get on the treadmill of treatment, right? And they're looking around saying, well, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. And from my own experience, I tell people, ask the questions, write them down. Don't leave your doctor's office till all of those questions are answered about your treatment, about what to expect, about what you should be going through. They have all the information, but if you don't ask, a lot of times you're not going to get that information. I think information is powerful, Bruce. The more you know, the more you can be prepared. And then becomes a mindset. And, I always, we've all heard this a lot, but I love this analogy, waking up in the morning saying, instead of saying I have to do something, say I get to do something. What's the alternative, right? People say, I have to go to the gym. No, I get to go to the gym. Why? Because you're healthy enough to get in your car or walk to the gym and have that workout. You have to go to treatment. Yes, you do, but you also get to go to treatment. It could be worse, right? And once you develop that mindset, you're in a different place. Even though there's going to be tough times, there's going to be tough treatments, there's going to be tough side effects. If you know it through information and you have the right mindset, you can overcome it and put yourself in a better spot.
Excellent. Kevin, thanks so much for your time. Thanks so much for a story that we have a very good feeling that for anybody watching or listening is going to inform and inspire. So Kevin Jerge, Jackson, Tennessee, thanks so much for being with us on Cancer Interviews.
Thanks for having me, Bruce. This was a great interview and time well spent.
Excellent. And we're going to close as we always do by reminding you that if you or a loved one are on a cancer journey, or you think you might be, you are not alone. There are people out there like Kevin who have information that can take that cancer journey and certainly not wipe it away, but can make it easier. So until next time, we'll see you on down the road.